All right, everybody, happy Thursday. Welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Coming to you guys live from the FL1 studios here in Seneca Falls. I am Paul Russo, joined, as always, by Kyle Evans. Kyle, happy Thursday. I'm not quite at doom and gloom full phased yet, but we just might kind of be getting there. But we'll discuss, the comments made by Brian Cashman, obviously here for the Yankees. For the Mets, I have probably a bit of a different viewpoint for how things have gone so far with that Tiger series. Obviously just one day, but a doubleheader in that. So we got that. And then weather wreaking havoc in AAA baseball. What else is new? So plenty to get to, but how's your week been so far? Baseball's been interesting for us collectively as a unit, but how are things going, all things considered?
Well, a series win is always good, but my confidence still lacks with this team.
Sure.
But I guess you got to be happy with what they did. As for the Mets, I always keep saying I'm not worried with them. I know we'll talk about it more, but yeah, overall it's been a pretty good week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been like I said, my Mets viewpoint is definitely a little bit different, I think, than I'd say maybe some obviously fans and other viewpoints, I think, within it. And obviously we'll get to those within that. But first, have to thank DeSano Propane for being a presenting sponsor today. 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. You can go online to DeSanoPropane.com for more information or call them toll-free at 1-800-752-4574 today. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSano Propane and Cafe 19. Breakfast, lunch, pastries, celebratory cakes, pies, and catering. Guaranteed fresh and always local at Cafe 19 here in Seneca Falls. Also offering an assortment of beverages, including tea, coffee, and espresso drinks. You can check out their full menu and weekly specials at xixcafe.com. Really enjoy stuff over there. I'm a big fan, by the way, over there. And their menu kind of floats in and out with different stuff as they get in, but bet you didn't realize this for me, Kyle. I'm a big fan of their black bean burger over there, so pretty good stuff.
Yeah,
I venture off the beaten path every now and then.
Yeah, I don't think I've had anything from there. I definitely should give it a try.
Mm-hmm. As now, apparently, there we go. We'll be dealing with some Wi-Fi stuff here in and out here potentially all day at the moment. So apologize in advance if some of the transitions are a little bit delayed. Normally, obviously, we try our best to kind of alternate in and out between the stuff, but we're also with the Yankees again today. They just kind of have, I think, the bulk of the headlines to kind of get to at the moment. To be frank, they won ugly against the Guardians to take the series just overall here, right? I don't think there's a way around it, but I guess to do the full-fledged quote, right, a win is a win. So who kind of knows, I guess, with that in a way. There's a couple different things I guess kind of get to here. I think we'll table like the Harrison Bader and Oswald Peraza stuff, I think, until we actually get to like the injury stuff here. But I think we need to begin kind of with the Brian Cashman comments prior to the game yesterday for the Yankees. Kind of holds what's become I feel like a bi-monthly presser of sorts in a way in the dugout, more or less saying, look, I have faith and we're exploring everything and blah, 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 but admittedly, it's kind of at this point where it's like, what point? I think we're beyond the put-up or shutout point of this, right? I mean, this has been going on for years now with Cashman, that he has these comments, and I don't want to be the guy because there's enough of these takes kind of just simmering everywhere, but I do have to say, like, let alone George, that regime, not to put it like this, but that regime's been dead for a while now, right? But Hank's rolling over in his grave. I mean, it's one of those things where, I don't. It's one of those things I always go back to this. I don't. It's not like I don't think Hal doesn't have the heart to be, I guess, the owner in this case, because he does. I'm not. I don't want to make it sound like he. To me, he doesn't care. I think he does care. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, whatever edge he has, he doesn't, I don't think, orchestrate it in the right way. What I mean by that is, and this is the, far be it from me, given the position of some favorite teams of mine elsewhere in sports in this regard, right? Because for those who don't know, I'm a Washington Commanders fan for football, okay? And all things considered, no matter which ownership group it's going to be here that gets the winning bid, they have enterprises within sports elsewhere, whether it's the Harris Group that owns the Sixers and the New Jersey Devils and stuff like that, or what I call more or less the Canadian group at this point. I think it's led by Antopoulos, or however you pronounce it. But he has teams and organizations, whether it's in Canada or over in Europe. But all of them have shown at least the edge of where it's like, okay, if we have to fire somebody, if we have to make these decisions to do it. And when I look at Hal, who has, or I guess really in this case, the Steinbrenner family collective at this point, they have the Yankees, they have NYCFC. I think many people don't know, but they have a, albeit minor, stake within IndyCar racing. With the team, with the Andretti Autosport team. I kind of wonder if he's just one of these guys, really, for sure at this point, that just cares more about whether at the bottom of the page it's coming out black or red. And when you're the Yankees, that bottom of the page is always going to be in black for the most part. I don't know. I know you were very much so. Even going into that press conference yesterday, Kyle, you were very much so kind of banging the drum of, I think you kind of predicted, actually, a couple of the quotes that did end up coming out, but you were very much so, I think, on the train of, what's he going to say that we just either A, don't already know, or B, what is he just going to try and cover up with a blanket and make it seem like it's not there?
Yeah, I mean, that's really all it is. He's just trying to make the fans relax a little bit, I guess is the right thing to say. Mm-hmm. And that certainly wasn't the case from what I saw on social media. His comments are just irrelevant. And in my opinion, he probably should have waited to speak until after this big month ahead where they face AL East opponents 14 of the 29 games. That's why my opinion on this team has not changed, because they played 3 games against the Guardians. None of them are AL East opponents. And another quick thought, yeah, they won the series. They won the last 2 games. But guess what? The Rays won too. They didn't gain a single game on the Rays. Right. And they play them 7 out of the next 10 games. So no, my opinion has not changed on this team. Last night, I know we're going to talk about it more. Last night, they honestly should have lost. And Aaron Boone's decision-making has been rough, to say the least. I know he doesn't have the best roster right now to deal with, but he can still manage the bullpen better, and that's something that he continues to struggle with. And then his post-game comments, I'll never agree with. When a guy's struggling, why continue to put him in a big spot? And that's what he keeps doing with Clay Holmes. So, Cashman's comments mean nothing to me. Of course he's looking to upgrade the team. Every GM does that. I mean, those comments were just irrelevant in my opinion.
Yeah, we'll circle back to the Boone thing here in a minute, because that's in and of itself a completely different discussion point in my mind. So I'm old enough to know when Brian Cashman was still a young GM, I guess, on the scene in a way. Obviously, you're a bit on the obviously younger end of it, where you kind of come in for what I call kind of the renaissance of him in a sense. You kind of, I don't want to do the full-fledged history deal here at this point. It's just one of those things where I think that's also been beaten to a pulp. But he doesn't have much of a true fingerprint on, say, the late 90s run. He comes into 98 full-time wise, but those were mostly still, if you want to go the Stick Michael route, you can. But that was a different regime, really, that had its true fingerprints and blueprints on that. He has a decent run, admittedly in the early 2000s. The team couldn't get it done on the field, but he put the team to get to the World Series twice in 4 years. Really twice in 3 years out on the field. And then, we kind of get into 2004, make some really good moves, and the Yankees have the choke job. After that, look, it gets murky. You have a lot of questionable moves that, happen in retrospect, right? Whether it's the all-famous Carl Pavano signing at this point, as a lot of people enjoy pointing out, but he had a lot of questionable ones too. I mean, he brings in Jarrett Wright, who there was a lot of writing on the wall here, and I know this is very circling on 2005, but that's a very crucial point here. Is a lot of people are pointing fingers to a lot of similarities between this. We kind of fast forward here a number of years. You get to 2009, the offseason between 08 to 09. He makes splash moves with Sabathia, Teixeira, Burnett. One that gets completely under the radar now, and some way in my mind, is the Swisher move. I'm also a Nick Swisher stan, to be quite honest, but to be fair, since then the moves have been hit and miss, to say the least. To the point that the closest the Yankees have gotten back to the World Series has been just more or less the sniffs at various points, 2012, 17, etc. So there comes a certain point, right, where it's like you have your success, and I bring this up a lot more so in different sports. The one sport where I always bring this up is basketball, right, is like, sure, I'll keep it New York-centric in this case. Sure, Tom Thibodeau is a really good coach for this Knicks team, okay? But is he the coach that can take that team to the next level? And I've always said I don't think so.
Hopefully not.
Well, right. But my point is, people fit different bills in different spots. And at this point in time, and it's going to be tough because the Yankees gave Cashman an extension in this past offseason for 4 more years, I have to be honest. I don't know if I don't think he's the man for the job anymore. I just don't. The press conference yesterday was just, to me, the same wish-wash thing that he always has said for the past decade plus, to be quite honest, when things aren't going right.
Yeah, and I think right now, this is kind of where I'm at. Like, yeah, they're dealing with tons of injuries, so that's probably why they're not off to a great start like they were last year. But, okay, say they get everyone back, and they go ahead and win 95 games, or they go ahead and win the division. The thing is, the last 6 years, they do that, they get to the playoffs, and they're just done. I'm tired of winning the division or winning 95 games to 100 games in the regular season. It's time to start making World Series. It shouldn't just be, let's win the division, let's win a couple playoff games. So that's why, even if they go ahead and win a bunch of games and somehow win the division, it's not good enough to me.
Yeah. And to me, the injury thing can only take you so far, too, to be completely honest. Look no further than the Mets. They've had their fair share of them to get going this year as well, and they are, for better or worse, albeit the records are a lot more similar than I think people realize, but they're just in a better spot than the Yankees are. I think that boils down to mentally, to be quite honest, or I guess maybe not so much mentally, but mentality-wise. You kind of look at these press conferences. It's post-game locker room stuff. Not press conferences in the actual sense, right? But to me, when I see the Met locker room one, it's a lot more optimistic, upbeat than Yankee ones. And like I said, their records are a lot more similar, but the Mets, to me, are just in that better position right now. And it helps their guys are either back already or closer to being back. That's something, obviously, I mentioned we'll touch on anyway. It's, one of the big headlines here for both teams is the fact that within the past few years, there's just been a ton of injury updates and health updates on players. But, for the Yankees, it's just been tough. And you yourself brought up a good point, Kyle, the other day here, that you point out to myself and a couple other people was last year's trade deadline now is going down as another historically bad Cashman run, to be quite honest.
Yep, bad trades, bad contracts recently. Obviously, Aaron Hicks is one that stands right out. And to me, it's just so mind-blowing that Hicks continues to have a roster spot despite all the injuries. A guy that's literally not performing at all is still on this team because of his contract, and I really think it's because Cashman is afraid to admit that he made a big mistake.
But that's the wild part to me, because the Hicks deal, I don't think is necessarily a bad deal.
The length is.
It's the length. Yeah, I mean, it's the length. I mean, money-wise, it was such a great move at the time. But the 7-year aspect of it now is just where it's like, yeesh, like it's just.
And usually they're afraid to give out like long contracts.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if you remember back, Cashman didn't even want to give Judge that extra year. Hal had to make that call. And then, you look at Rodon. Remember all the rumors all off season? They only wanted to go 5. And then here they give him the 6th year. And then now look, I mean, yeah, he's going to end up pitching in games eventually. And we're going to talk about it more later. But man, like, seems like every time they give somebody a bigger contract, it just injuries are a big part of it, and it's incredibly frustrating. I know every team deals with injuries, but the amount that they're dealing with right now, and over the last several years, it just seems like, why is it always them?
Right. Yeah. Let's kind of transition over with that to the Boone stuff here. I think we've done more than enough with the Cashman stuff at this point. It's tough because I've gone on here and I've said a lot of the stuff with Boone, I think I do for sure, and I think I've tried to preach to people. I think you have to take with a grain of salt, because I think a lot of it is he's acting as a meat shield for the front office, but where he's not are kind of these habitual decision making where, and I feel bad because I think some of it's justified, but a lot of the stuff that Clay Holmes is catching right now is unfair, because I think other managers would not be putting him in these situations at this point. And this is where I do come down on Boone is when a guy, like last night, for example, on Wednesday, when a guy like Ron Marinaccio is having another, to be honest, career best style performance, why are you taking the wheels off of him at that point? And you're putting in a guy whose confidence is already in a bad spot, admittedly, with Clay Holmes, right? And he's struggling now for the better part of a full calendar year, right? I mean, I think, what is it now, 8 blown saves or something like that? It might be more than that now. Either way. But there's other stuff too, right? I mean, he pulling, for example, Herman, and again, that's Clay Holmes catching the end of it here, but pulling Herman or leaving Clark Schmidt in too long. A lot of this stuff now is just kind of building up to the point that, I can't use, and other people can't use he's just being a meat show for the front office move, when that stuff is very clearly his decision making, not something that's coming down from higher up. And this is year, what? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is year, what, 6 or 7 of them, right?
Yep, I think
7.
7.
So, and I don't doubt his baseball IQ. His baseball IQ is really good. That goes back to his playing days. Like, I just don't get, like, what his thought process is going into these, especially, like I said, like, the situation last night now is just going to stick out to me because of, say, the after effects of what kind of happened from it.
Yeah, and his post-game pressers, I feel like the last or two of the last three nights.
They've turned it into his greatest hits. That's all it is.
One of the things that he goes to all the time is usage and pitch count. Okay, fine, but one time will you just let a guy that's rolling go one extra batter?
Right.
Or two, a.k.a. Domingo Germán, last night Ron Marinaccio. Like, there was 2 outs. He couldn't get one more batter because you like the matchup Clay Holmes versus Miles Straw because of the numbers. Like, for one time, can we ignore numbers? Like, it was a tie game. Ron Marinaccio was literally just dominating. And then we go to a guy who has no confidence, and it's not just pitching. He didn't even field a ground ball on Tuesday night. A comeback right to the mound, easy play. Couldn't even field a ground ball. That's where his confidence is.
Yeah.
So, and then you ask him after the game, and the reporter asked him about it. He said, "I would never hesitate to go to Clay Holmes." Oh, really? You wouldn't hesitate? Do you want to win? That's what I was thinking.
Right. And for me, with something like that, I mean, I was trying to look up that stat, by the way, on Holmes. I just can't find it right now in the moment. But I don't hate that mentality, right? I love the fact that he trusts his guys like that, but it's very apparent that but Clay Holmes needs to build back that confidence himself. And Clay Holmes is a good pitcher. When the Yankees first went and got him, he was frankly lights out.
Since the All-Star game he's been.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at is here now for the better part of a calendar year. Something he has to figure it out. And I hope he does, to be quite honest, but it is kind of what it is in a way, in that sense, right? And it sucks because if Holmes was struggling, and this goes into maybe our next talking about here, is this is probably a spot where we might see, Loisaga, if he's healthy, to be honest with you, be the de facto closer for the Yankees right now. Not to be that guy, but maybe even like if he was still a Yankee, Zach Britton. Now you kind of look at it. Again, there's a couple other guys too, say like a Tommy Cantley if he was healthy, stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is these guys aren't healthy, and that's where I look at a spot like last night is, to me, when I'm coaching, I look at it this way. Ron Marinaccio in that spot last night earned at least the right to go one more batter, in my mind. It sounds dumb in essence, but like you can't kill momentum. You can't kill a run. And if you do, that's on you. That's something that you just have to own. And to be honest with you, it's not like I don't feel Boone doesn't take that or doesn't do that sometimes. It almost seems like he tries to deflect it one way or another. And sometimes you just have to take it on the chest and admit it's on you.
Yeah, I guess he did say Tuesday night that, the decision on pulling Germán was on him. And
right.
I guess that was nice to hear finally from his mouth.
But last night, like you brought up, he kind of deflected it away.
Yeah, and because they won, it turned out to not be a big deal at all. And honestly, I still can't believe they won that game. I know Cleveland's struggling too, like the Yankees are, but they are very lucky they weren't playing some team like the Rays or the Blue Jays, because it probably would have ended different. But yeah, I just don't see, like, say Friday night, because today's an off day, they're in a situation where it's a tie game or they're ahead against the Rays. Are you going to bring Clay Holmes back in again? Like, do you really have trust in him? I think that would be insane if they did that. Yeah. I would bring him into more of a lower leverage situation, and try to figure things out that way. But I feel like they're not. I think Boone is not kidding when he says that he'll put him in any spot and he trusts him.
Yeah, but before we move on to the health thing here, because we've spent the first 20 minutes really on the front on management, which is something that we don't usually do here. I remember it had to have been 11 or 12. Or actually, it might have been a little bit earlier than that, because that was when Mariano was kind of dealing with some injuries there right before he retired. But he went through a patch where I think he blew like 2 or 3 straight opportunities, and he outright told Girardi, like, I'm not right now. Use like Robertson, and I think he used Rivera a couple times, like when they were just up like 4 or 5 in the ninth, just to get him in a spot where it's like, this is your spot, but just work it out and figure yourself out. And obviously, it worked out well. And Clay Holmes is definitely not Mariano Rivera. I'm not saying that by any means. But maybe this is a spot where, and again, this is maybe just the difference of personalities, right? Maybe Clay Holmes just needs to be like, hey, like, let's figure something out here so the betterment of everybody can get going.
And another thing is a long layoff. I don't know if you realize this, but before Tuesday's game, when he blew that save, he hadn't been used in 5 days.
Well, that's the other thing, too, right? Yeah.
So why wouldn't you bring him into a game just to, get him some work?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of management is that? And that's not just on Aaron Boone, by the way. Matt Blake is heavily involved with the pitch counts and all that. So for them to not bring him in one of those games where they were really struggling, just throw him in a situation, even if you're down like 5-2 or 7-2, just bring him in so he can get work.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. That's another thing. Again, go back to the Mariano days. I mean, that's something that even Mariano, I think, always wanted was if he didn't want to be on the shelf too long, use him somewhere if you got to, even if you're losing, just to get some run. Let's shift focus here. Let's begin with Harrison Bader and Oswald Peraza, who got hurt last night. 2 different injuries we're talking about here with both guys. Peraza rolls his ankle. And he should be getting, the way it sounds, he's getting imaging done today. Both him and Bader are, but it will be for 2 different things. I'd imagine Peraza's probably the MRI route, whereas Bader,
he seems more fine.
Yeah, Bader, I think, is going to be more in that concussion protocol spot, obviously. I don't mean to chuckle at that. It's just one of those things where it's like, here we go.
Well, yeah.
And for Bader, obviously, I think I'm with you. He appeared to be very with it, but concussions are very different for different people. I've had my couple goes with them at the very least, as I always call it. And I don't remember jack from them, but so who knows how I was acting in the moment. But it's different for everybody, right? I think. Look, the team can't afford to lose both of them.
Peraza's probably going on the IL, in my opinion.
It's weird though. I feel like at this point the Yankees can't lose Bader.
They're 2-0 with him in the starting lineup.
Yeah,
Small sample size. I get it, guys.
But yeah, the off day today especially I think helps the Bader situation, especially since he more than likely, as I call, will be within the concussion protocol range because that's what happened. Him and and to be fair, I feel really bad because I saw somebody try and throw IKF under the bus with it last night, and I'm just like, come on, like.
He said he lost the ball in the lights, which probably did because he's not used to playing out there.
But that goes to a communication factor that in this situation actually falls on Bader. You're the center fielder, you are the de facto captain of the outfield. If you need to call it yourself or point to whether it's IKF coming in or say Volpe or whoever at that situation's at short or second coming out, that's how you need to go about it. And again, I don't want to put blame on anybody in a situation like this, but it's one of those things where you bring it up, Kyle. You have an experienced guy in the outfield with IKF who, mind you, still almost made a play on it, to be completely honest with you.
First career start in left field.
Right, at the end of the day, so it's just a tough spot in that situation. And with Peraza too, right? Running and you just roll your ankle. Like,
But both of those injuries in 5 minutes,
right.
I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, it never ends. And, like, I think it was probably because it was wet out. It was raining a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of more of a late slide, and he just twisted it. Like, oh, great. But, yeah, we'll see how those guys do. I think Peraza goes to the IL. Bader's fine.
Right. Just a couple updates. It's a decently long list here. I tried to put this in terms of how I felt about things moving forward, but Carlos Rodon, we have a snag in his rehab.
Again.
Stalls out. His back is just giving him trouble. He will be seeing a specialist today. If there is a positive, it's obviously, again, not with his elbow, but with his back. So,
and no pain? Did you see that?
It's
He has
that
no
nagging thing.
He said no pain, but it's affecting his mechanics. Yeah. How bizarre is that? And nobody knows, like, I guess he's been seeing a lot of people before this, and nobody can figure out what the issue is.
I kind of wonder, and this is where I don't want to do the whole, I know exactly what's going on. I kind of feel like he might be having some sort of compression issue or something like that. I talk about this from the standpoint of how of the things I know about from racing, for example. Drivers in certain situations, because I don't know what. Obviously, I don't. Carlos Rodon's not in a race car. But what I'm saying is, if you put yourself in certain situations, your body affects you in different ways. And he could have just, who knows? He might have been out freaking swimming and just dove a little bit too deep within a moment and done something like that. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? That's the thing. It sounds like it's a nag issue for him at this point that just he can't shake it.
Yeah, it's been like 2 months since he first was dealing with it, and then this is the second time his rehab's been shut down. So I don't know what's gonna happen. We'll see kind of what goes on today. We'll probably know more tomorrow, but this is odd.
Yeah, to say the least. All right, let's get to some positives here overall. Luis Severino was supposed to do a rehab game with Single-A Tampa. The Yankees have scrapped that with them going to Tampa. He'll actually throw live BP this weekend in the form of a game. It will be either a sim of 5 innings or 40 pitches, kind of whatever comes first. So that will be pretty good. A lot of it was just having to control the environment they prefer in this situation. Lou Trevino, Tommy John surgery yesterday in Los Angeles. All signs point to everything went well within the surgery, but nothing formally has been said. Frankie Montas has nearing the start of a throwing program. Catcher Ben Rortvedt, who, again, I'm not convinced is a real person, but who knows, elevated in his rehab assignment. He's now with AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Jonathan Loisaga, who I already mentioned, surgery to remove a bone spur and loose bodies in his right elbow on Tuesday. Everything went as planned there. And then some good news here as well, as third baseman Josh Donaldson has resumed baseball activities, as had Aaron Judge. So trying to end with some positivity through there at the injury updates, especially for a team that really does need Aaron Judge. And I can't believe I'm honestly saying this, but I would at least prefer to see what this lineup does with Josh Donaldson in it at this point.
Yeah, I thought about that the other day. As much as I don't like Josh Donaldson, I feel like they'd probably be better off with him in the lineup than some of these other guys, just because of his experience. He does have power when he does connect. So I guess I'd be in favor of him getting back quicker than I would probably have thought early in April.
That makes 2 of us at this point. It's kind of wild to think about.
Yep.
All right, the aforementioned Yankees and their Tampa antics. They are they're on their way to Tampa Bay right now to face the Rays for 3 games. Travel day today. They begin tomorrow night. 6:40 first pitch on Yes as Johnny Brito goes for the Yankees. Tampa Bay, they're still playing their series against the Pirates, so all of their starters are TBA throughout this. Saturday, 4:10 on Yes, Domingo Germán goes, and then it's Cole Day on Sunday, 1:40 on Yes, as Garrett Cole gets the nod for the Yankees. So, do I dare do it?
Rays are 25-6.
Do I dare?
16-2 at home.
So it sounds like I think you're what way you're leaning.
Sweep easily.
You think the Rays sweep?
They don't lose. It's like when Mets say the Braves don't lose. It's true.
Fair.
The Pirates are good, and they're beating the Pirates easily.
I think the Yankees get 2 of 3. I really do. The Rays, look, they're winning still. That's what matters at the end of the day. But they have a lot of their guys are coming back to earth. Mainly a few of them on the pitching staff that I think overperformed the first month of the year, first few weeks of the year. So I am very confident in saying the Yankees take 2 of 3.
We thought the offense was struggling the past 2 or 3 weeks. This is by far the best pitching staff they're facing. And with all those younger guys and the Jake Bauers and the Willie Calhoun, it's going to be a rough time at the Trop.
Because when I think of Yankee legends, I go Ruth, Gehrig, Berra, DiMaggio, Mantle, and then Willie Calhoun.
one win if they're lucky. They never do well at the Trop, even when the seasons they've won 100 games. I don't know what it is. Probably because it's a dump. It sucks. It needs to be torn down. But they just do not play well.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. It's fair. I'm not ready to completely write off things yet. As we transition over to the Mets, where that a lot of people have been trying to do that. Doubleheader for the Mets yesterday in Detroit. Game 1 was rained out Tuesday. Forced into a doubleheader yesterday, and they get swept. And I did see some doomsday Mets people on Twitter. I'm just like, again, let's take stock of the situation here. If it wasn't for the fact they had to get these games in, I'm more than confident to say Game 1 yesterday either A, would have been postponed and a doubleheader would be today, or B, would have been suspended and they probably would have been done playing at roughly 1 a.m. this morning. It reminded me in all honesty of the loss Friday for the Mets against the Braves, where let's see you try throw a baseball, for example, when it's just pouring rain. It's not fun. The game's not fun in that situation. I've been in it. You've been in it, Kyle. I know numerous people have all been in that situation. It's a toss-up. It's a crapshoot when the weather's like that. It just is.
I think it's only because of the opponent why Mets fans are so up in the air. Because, listen, not just because of the record. The Tigers' offense, I forgot the exact number, but are like almost 30th.
None of them are batting above 300, I know
it's
that.
It's really bad, and Javier Baez had himself a game, and he's been awful to start the year. So I think it's just because of the opponent and because they did lose those games to the Braves, 2 of them. And then just dating back to a couple weeks ago, they ended up splitting with the Giants. They struggled against the A's. I think it's just because of that buildup. But what they don't understand is the Mets are fine. They have a really good team. They're getting Verlander back today. Like, they're going to do fine.
Right. Yeah, we'll circle back to the Verlander thing. Scherzer, that's the other thing, too, right? Scherzer comes back off the suspension yesterday, and that game I could understand maybe in the grand scheme of it having maybe some issue with it, especially from the offense side thing. But you come back after 10 days of non-competitive throwing, and obviously longer in this case because of rainouts and stuff like that for Scherzer. Like, it's tough. It's tough. But I go back to what I've kind of had to pound the drum here with a little bit, and the fact that these guys are coming back. And it's more, like I said, kind of at the start of this episode overall, is there's the light's closer to the end of the tunnel for the Mets than it is the Yankees in this situation. Obviously, Verlander's back today. Scherzer came back yesterday. We'll get into it a little bit more here in just a few minutes, but other people are closer to being back than I think people realize. And like I mentioned, I think a lot of it too is just like you look at the vibes to me and the spirit coming out of the locker room. It's just good right now with the Mets. And I know their record. They're one game above 500, 2 games above 500.
Right with the Marlins for second place.
But it's a lot like the way it was last year, almost in a way where this NL East is just, I think, going to be competitive to the point that at the end of the day, the cream's going to rise to the top. And to me, the Mets are going to be rising to the top. Like I said, I understand especially maybe the Game 2 side of it because the weather was improved for Game 2. It wasn't raining. It was still damp and cold, but it wasn't raining like it was in Game 1. But it's just one of those things where it's like, breathe, tame. The arms are leaving you in a spot where the offense needs to take that step up and do that work. You know, it's not, say, you look at the Yankees where it's like probably the collective unit needs to be doing better. Or, really, you look at Atlanta. Atlanta's in a very similar spot, in my mind, to the Mets, where I think for them it's more on the collective side where they all needed to be doing a slightly better. But one game for them, the pitching looks really good. It's the offense not showing up. Or it's one game where the offense is really showing up and the pitching's just not there. Like, that game for the Braves today against the Marlins could be really indicative to me about where they are because I mentioned, do I expect the Marlins to really contend in the NL East this year? Not exactly, but I don't think they're going to be pushovers, and they clearly aren't being pushovers. They are playing tough. So it's one of those things where it's like, let's take a breath, assess the situation a little bit more here with the Mets. I don't think it's doom and gloom by any means. I like their spot here moving forward. And again, not to go too far down the line here of what we're talking about here in the next couple minutes, but you play Colorado this weekend. Like, again, it's a good spot to be rather on. It's to beat the ever-living crap out of a team.
Yeah, and that's going to be at home, and then they're going to get the Reds and the Nationals. Yeah. It's kind of a little bit of, I guess you should never say easy in major league sports just because of it always seems to be competitive, but it's an easier part of their May schedule where they should start winning more games because they're 2-8 in their last 10. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's going to continue. I don't see them getting swept today either by the Tigers. Mm-hmm. That would be crazy if that happened. And I believe the weather's perfect today in Detroit.
Yeah.
So maybe today's the day they get going, and they need to. But they're only still 5 games behind the Braves, even though they're 2-8. Mm. So that's kind of encouraging.
Yeah. No, I agree. Before we get to that final game of the series, a couple things. Like I mentioned, the lights at the end of the tunnel are brighter and closer for the Mets. Carlos Carrasco, he should be slated. It doesn't know, again, not indicative where yet. Should be getting a rehab assignment here within the coming days. He's been on a throwing program now for about a week or so since he got some clearance. And all signs point to that kind of being the case here. Brooks Raley avoided any really major disaster. He shouldn't be missing any time when he's eligible to come off the injured list on the 13th. They expect him to pretty much be right back with the team at that point, which would be huge in a bullpen that needs a left-handed arm full-time. And speaking of left-handed arms, Jose Quintana, he has begun the throwing program. It is flat ground. It's not obviously anywhere close to being back here within the immediate, but you bring back another starter. I mean, that's a big, big plus here sooner than later.
Yeah, when he comes back, I'm really interested to see what they do with him. I know we kind of talked about it, I think, in the beginning of the year, to see eventually get moved to the bullpen just because the starting rotation, kind of already has their pieces. And how does he perform? He's had a couple good seasons in the last, 5 years, but then he's had seasons where he's been really bad. So when they get him back, I'm just kind of interested to see what his role is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting for the Mets because the way it looks, Magill's staying in the rotation for now, and as is Joey Lucchesi. So I don't know what the plan is going to be, especially, to be honest, when Carrasco comes back here within the next really 10 days, the way it looks. It's going to be pretty interesting to see how that goes. As mentioned already, the Mets do have one left in Detroit before coming back home to Citi Field. That game this afternoon, 1:10 on SNY or MLB Network. Verlander's season debut and Mets debut against who has actually been probably Detroit's best pitcher, Eduardo Rodriguez. But I do agree. I think the Mets handle business today. You get swept by the Tigers, I think that definitely probably does ding the morale in the clubhouse a little bit. But I would imagine they handle business today and we get off at least some of the embers of the doomsdayers, to say the least, going into the weekend.
And get back home, I feel like a lot of games so far this year have been on the road. Remember they had that 10-game road trip. They're already back on the road now. So getting home, I think, would really, turn things around for them.
Yeah, and then, mentioned, right, they have the Rockies tomorrow, 7:10 on SNY, Antonio Stanzella. That will be his season debut for the Rockies. Kodai Senga gets to start for the Mets. And then Saturday, 4:10 on SNY, Austin Gomber, who mostly has been a bullpen arm his whole career, now starting for the Rockies against Tyler Magill. And then Sunday, 1:40, Ryan Feltner against to be announced for the Mets. That doubleheader yesterday kind of threw a wrench in some of the plans that I think they had. So wouldn't be surprised if that was supposed to be Lucchese's spot. That'd be one day's short rest. My gut tells me that might be kind of a de facto bullpen game, so Tommy Hunter, come on down. I feel bad for him. He kind of gets the short end of the stick there for the Mets in that situation. Again, I'd probably go end up being the actual optimist here, and that I know probably pisses a lot of people off, but I think the Mets get a sweep this weekend. I say a lot of that because a lot of my bets this week have focused around the Rockies series at home against Milwaukee. And frankly, Colorado was playing out of their freaking shoes against Milwaukee. So I think that comes to an ultimate end with the Mets this weekend.
Yeah, I'll probably say a sweep, but if they did drop a game, I wouldn't be surprised either.
Yeah.
But no way they lose a series, in my opinion, or get swept.
Yeah, I mean, that's baseball, so be bound to happen eventually there. All right, let's talk some minor league baseball before we head out of here. Weather, again, as I mentioned, stop me if you've heard us say it a ton before, wreaking havoc for our AAA brethren.
Feels like a lot with
week.
these minor league teams.
Yeah. So, one game each for both Rochester and Syracuse so far, and they've lost them respectively. It's strange, though. Again, going back to it, Rochester's just playing better quality baseball. They just couldn't quite get the runs across the board against Scranton in the game. They lost 3-1, but they had 7 hits compared to Scranton's 8. So clearly someone's right there, and clearly the pitching is keeping them in it. Again, have the shot out a guy like Darren Baker. I had his average completely wrong. He's actually at about 350, his batting average right now. So top of the order is working well. They've also added some guys coming in. I know you sent me this call the other day. Tyler Danish has joined the team, but also Jose Urena is joining the team as well.
Former Pirate, right?
Former Marlin, former, I think, Pirate, former Tiger, and recently former Rocky. So
He's been around.
He's been around. Jeter Downs got optioned back down. I know he was more or less up because Idomelo Vargas was hurt, and Vargas has been rehabbing with Rochester. So I know there has been an official move of Vargas going back up as of when I was doing the notes about an hour ago, but I would imagine that is the case in that situation. For Syracuse, it was an offensive dogfight against the Iron Pigs Tuesday, and I think as much as we've talked about, we really do need to give some kudos here. Mark Vientos, Serrani, Mauricio, just continuing their torrid offense. I mean, they're leading all the offensive categories except stolen bases for the Yes Mets. We talk about at what point do the Mets just kind of give them a call. Selfishly at this point, I hope they stay in Syracuse because they are making that team really fun to watch and still at the end of the day really competitive. It's teams are having a hard time snuffing them out because of these two guys.
Yeah, just looking at their offense right now, you got 2 guys hitting above 300, almost 400. You only have 1 guy under 200. Just a lot of guys that are hitting for average this year. Was it Tuesday night they lost 9-7, but again, their offense seems to always be there. Once in a while, their pitching will let them down, but their offense has been way better than it ever was last year, in my opinion. A guy that has been really good too that doesn't get talked about enough is the leadoff hitter, Danny Mendick. He's hitting 287. He's had a pretty good year. He has 29 hits, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, perfect leadoff guy. The only guy that's really struggling is Khalil Lee.
No.
But he's probably,
I don't think he's their full-time outfielder anymore anyway. I think he's kind of the 4th guy.
Probably, thinking about other things.
Yeah.
More than baseball right now, and as he should.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Speaking of that, I don't mean to interrupt, but we got a decently... Well, it should be decently large breaking overall baseball news going on right now.
What's up?
Suspicious betting activity. So, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for Brad, but something tells me you might be in deeper waters besides just losing your job at this point. That's not good. That is very not good. Not good tidbit coming out here as we kind of break from the show.
The amount of betting stories that we've had the last month or so, even in professional sports with the NFL, it's just something we've never heard before. I mean, all these guys getting suspended for betting, and now we get a coach fired for betting, and other things that are going on. It's wild. Welcome to 2023, guys.
I just read a very funny. So again, this is now the process of peeling back the curtain whenever something like this kind of happens, or like earlier when I was trying to find that stat about Clay Holmes. This is me now in that black hole of reading like a Twitter reply or something like that. Alagambla.
That's funny.
Okay, so just baseball. Jesus. Let's get out of the weeds there and break for the day. We've gone long today, so we do apologize for that. But just a lot to kind of get to within a short period of time today, and that's happens every now and then. Some days are shorter, some days are longer. That's baseball. Good luck to all the teams this weekend. Should be a pretty good weekend. I know I mentioned I don't think it's going to happen today. I don't know fully. My car's got to go in the shop for an inspection on Saturday at this point. So
Just got mine recently.
yeah, so I don't know. I was supposed to try and get to Syracuse. I don't know if it's going to happen now. Life happens, but get out and watch some baseball if you can this weekend, whether it's Syracuse or going to Citi Field or Tampa or Scranton Wilkes-Barre. Or properly, I guess, would be Moosic in this case, but high school even for that matter as well. So, Kyle, any big plans this weekend, or just kind of keeping it low key?
A lot of sports. Hopefully win some more bets. Struggling a little bit lately.
Same. All my bets were DOA yesterday.
But yeah, we'll come back Monday. We'll talk about the Rays sweep and the Mets series win. And it should be a good weekend though with playoff hockey and basketball. Hopefully the Heat can take Game 3 on Saturday afternoon in Miami. I think the series is going to flip around a little bit. Jimmy Butler comes back. I honestly think the Heat win Game 3. I really do.
I like that. Not that I have a true dog in that fight or anything, but I appreciate, Kyle, you saying that because I know you as well are a Heat fan. So
Quickly, I know this is a baseball show, but the Knicks
You're
should
good.
be embarrassed winning by 6 points against that team the other night. Oh my God. They should be embarrassed. I mean, they had Randall back too. He had a career-high playoff stats and everything, and they still only won by 6.
Yeah, but he's not. I said this yesterday on Fresh Takes. We should definitely check out. Him and Brunson are not 100% though. So
Yeah, but they're still taking a lot of shots. And
fair.
I don't know. With the Heat's lineup, if you look at the different teams in that game, no way the Heat should have only lost by 6. I thought for sure 20-point game minimum. And the Heat were leading for a good chunk of that game, too, on and off. I mean, as many by 8. But, yeah, I think the Heat win the Game 3 and they win the series.
That's fair. I like that. I am with you, Kyle, 100%. With that, we will bid you adieu. Enjoy the weekend, everybody. Enjoy the games, and we'll talk with you on Monday.